The Council's mockery. The observation deck of Station Zenith Prime stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced transparent alloy. Beyond the shimmering barrier, 1,000 stars glittered against the infinite darkness of space. Inside the station, representatives from 63 different civilizations gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, hums, whistles, and spoken words that the universal translators worked tirelessly to interpret. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the presenter's platform, her dark eyes scanning the amphitheater-style chamber. She was a woman of average height, with black hair tied in a practical bun and a navy uniform that bore only 3 simple medals. Behind her, the small Earth delegation consisted of just 5 people, including her chief advisor, Marcus Webb, and their technical specialist, Lieutenant David Park. They looked insignificant compared to the grand entourages that surrounded them, some species bringing entire diplomatic corps that numbered in the dozens. The chamber itself was designed to intimidate. Rising tiers of seating climbed toward a domed ceiling that projected a real-time image of the galaxy itself, with trade routes marked in glowing lines of blue and gold. The most powerful civilizations occupied the lower tiers, closest to the central platform. Earth's assigned seats were in the upper levels, far from the center of power, a position that spoke volumes about humanity's status in galactic society. Elena activated the holographic display with a touch of her wrist device. A 3-dimensional map appeared above the platform, showing Earth's current territories and the requested expansion into the outer rim. Her voice was steady and professional as she began her presentation. Honored members of the Galactic Federation, I present Earth's formal request for expanded mining rights in sectors 7 through 12 of the Outer Rim territories. Our surveys have identified 17 asteroids rich in iridium and platinum group metals. These resources would allow us to expand our industrial capacity and contribute more significantly to galactic trade. Before she could continue, a sound erupted from the lower tiers. It took Elena a moment to recognize it as laughter. The Kryn delegation, massive reptilian beings with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, were the source. Their leader, Warlord Thrak, rose from his seat. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his powerful frame adorned with ceremonial armor that bore the scars of 100 battles. Mining rights? Thrak's voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. The mammals speak of mining as if they possess the capability to do anything beyond scratching at rocks with their primitive tools. He turned to address the other delegates, his arms spread wide. Perhaps we should also grant them permission to count the stars. That seems more appropriate for their technological level. Laughter rippled through the assembly. The Talvek Confederation delegation, beings of pure energy contained within crystalline bodies, pulsed with colors that their species used to express amusement. High Chancellor Vorin, their spokesperson, added his own commentary. The human fleet consists of 23 vessels, Vorin's synthetic voice echoed from his containment crystal. My civilization assigns more ships to escort a single cargo transport through disputed space. What do they imagine they will accomplish with such a force? Elena's jaw tightened slightly, but her expression remained neutral. Marcus Webb, standing behind her, placed a hand briefly on his datapad, a gesture that might have seemed nervous to any observer. In reality, he was recording every word, every facial expression, every gesture of contempt. The Zephyri Collective Representative, a hive-mind entity designated as Zar 9, spoke next. The Zephyri appeared as a floating mass of interconnected insectoid creatures, constantly shifting and reforming. Their collective voice sounded like 1,000 whispers speaking in perfect unison. We calculate a 0.03% probability that human industrial capacity could meaningfully extract resources from the designated sectors within a standard century. This request wastes the Council's time. We recommend immediate rejection and a 10-year moratorium on further human petitions. Elena allowed them to finish. She had expected this response, had prepared for it during the 3-month journey to Zenith Prime. What surprised her was the vehemence, the open cruelty in their dismissal. In previous sessions, the Council had at least maintained a veneer of diplomatic courtesy. If I may address the concerns raised, Elena began, but Warlord Thrak interrupted her again. Concerns? He descended from his tier, his heavy footsteps echoing through the suddenly quiet chamber. Other delegates watched with interest as the massive Kryn approached the human delegation. You misunderstand, Commander. We have no concerns about your capabilities because you pose no threat, hold no value, and represent no significant force in galactic affairs. He stopped just short of the platform, towering over Elena. The Kryn Empire has been monitoring your expansion. You occupy 7 worlds, all of them barely terraformed. Your largest colony houses fewer than 3 million individuals. Your fleet of 23 ships includes 12 that are over 30 years old by your own calendar. He leaned closer, his breath warm and smelling of sulfur. You are children playing at civilization while the adults conduct real business. Elena met his gaze without flinching. The request stands, Warlord. Will the council vote? Thrax's laugh was a sharp bark. By all means. Let us humor the mammals. He returned to his seat, moving with predatory grace despite his size. The voting process was conducted through the central computer system. Each delegation entered their decision privately, and the results were displayed on the holographic screen for all to see. The numbers appeared in glowing digits: 58 votes against, 3 in favor, 2 abstentions. Only the Fenari had voted in favor of Earth's request, along with 2 smaller species that humanity had assisted with medical aid in previous years. The Fenari ambassador, a graceful being with silver fur and large, expressive eyes, looked at Elena with something that might have been sympathy. The motion is rejected, announced the assembly director, a being whose species was so ancient that no one remembered their original name. They were simply called the Arbiters, and they had mediated galactic disputes for 10,000 years. Furthermore, the Council recognizes a counter-petition from the Kryn Empire. Elena's stomach tightened. This was not standard procedure. Warlord Thrax stood again, and this time his voice carried the weight of formal declaration. The Kryn Empire formally challenges Earth's claim to the colony worlds of New Terra, Esperanza, and Kepler 442c. These worlds lie within traditional Kryn expansion zones. We demand that humanity evacuate these colonies within 6 standard months, or we will remove them by force. The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates objected on procedural grounds, but many more simply watched with interest. The strong taking from the weak was not uncommon in galactic politics, merely impolite to conduct so openly. Elena felt Marcus's hand touch her elbow, a warning to stay calm. She took a slow breath and spoke clearly into the sudden silence that fell when the Arbiter raised one ancient hand. Earth rejects this demand, Elena said. Those worlds were legally claimed under Federation Charter. We have committed no violations of territorial law. Law. Thrax's expression was contemptuous. Law is enforced by power, Commander. You have no power. Your fleet is a joke. Your technology is outdated. Your people are soft creatures who have never known real war. He looked around the chamber, addressing everyone present. I make this prediction before the entire council: within 1 standard year, those 3 colonies will belong to the Kryn Empire. The humans will either flee or be swept aside. Elena stood silent for a long moment. The entire chamber waited to see how she would respond to such a direct threat. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but carried clearly through the acoustic engineering of the hall. The human delegation acknowledges the Kryn Empire's position. We withdraw our mining petition and request immediate departure clearance from Zenith Prime. She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Warlord Thrax. We will remember this day, Warlord. I hope you will too. Something in her tone made a few of the more perceptive delegates shift uncomfortably, but Thrax simply laughed again. Run home, little mammals. Enjoy your colonies while you still have them. The human delegation departed the Grand Assembly Hall in silence. They walked through corridors lined with representatives from a dozen species, many of whom watched them with barely concealed amusement or pity. No one spoke to them. No one offered even perfunctory diplomatic pleasantries. Their shuttle was a small vessel, utilitarian and unimpressive compared to the ornate ships docked around it. Once aboard, Elena waited until they had cleared the station's sensor range before she spoke. "Marcus, send the message." Marcus Webb's fingers flew across his communication console. The message was brief, just 2 words in a cipher that only a handful of people in the entire galaxy could decode: Winter Protocol. The signal traveled through quantum-entangled communicators, a technology that humanity had quietly developed but never shared with the galactic community. It reached Earth in less than 3 seconds, despite the fact that traditional faster-than-light communication would have taken nearly an hour. In the military command center buried 2 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, Fleet Admiral James Chin received the signal. He was a man in his 60s, with silver hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent decades making impossible decisions. He looked at the message on his screen, closed his eyes for just a moment, then opened them with absolute resolve. "Execute Winter Protocol," he said to his assembled staff. "All units, all locations, immediate implementation." What happened next occurred across 47 star systems simultaneously. Every human military vessel, from the smallest patrol craft to the largest cruisers, activated systems that had been installed in secret during their construction. Dimensional fold space generators powered up, creating bubbles of twisted spacetime around each ship. To outside observers, the effect was instantaneous. Every single human military asset simply vanished from sensors. Ships in orbit around Earth disappeared. The patrol vessels guarding the colonies blinked out of existence. The exploration craft mapping distant systems were suddenly gone. Even the defense platforms orbiting Earth's moon ceased to exist as far as any scanner could detect. The disappearances were noticed immediately. Trade ships passing through human-controlled space reported the anomaly. Monitoring stations throughout the galaxy detected the sudden absence. Within an hour, every major civilization knew that Earth's entire military fleet had vanished without a trace. On Zenith Prime, the emergency lights began flashing in the monitoring center. Director Kesh, a Talvek intelligence officer, stared at his displays with growing confusion. He ran the scans 3 times, then 4, then 5. The results were identical each time. "This is impossible," he muttered. "An entire fleet cannot simply disappear." But they had. And across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humanity as insignificant were suddenly asking a question they had never considered before: what else were the humans capable of? In the Grand Assembly Hall, Warlord Thrak received the news with a contemptuous snort. "They have fled," he announced to his advisors. "The mammals destroyed their own ships rather than face us in battle. This proves everything I said about their weakness." He ordered his invasion fleet to prepare for departure. 47 warships, each one a masterpiece of Kryn engineering, each one capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag. They would arrive at New Terra in 18 standard hours. Warlord Thrak had no idea that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his very long life. On the human shuttle racing away from Zenith Prime, Elena Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. Marcus noticed and raised an eyebrow in question. "They think we ran," she said quietly. "They think we're weak." "We are weak," David Park said from his seat. 23 ships against the entire galaxy. Elena's smile grew slightly wider. 23 ships that they knew about, Lieutenant. She looked out the viewport at the stars streaming past. "The question was never whether we could fight. The question was always whether we would need to." She pulled up a secure display that showed real-time data from the Winter Protocol implementation. 847 warships now existed in dimensional fold space, invisible to normal sensors, capable of emerging anywhere in the galaxy at a moment's notice. For decades of secret research. For decades of building and planning and preparing for a day that everyone hoped would never come. By morning, Elena said softly, "The galaxy will understand that humanity is not prey. We are not victims. We are not weak." She looked at her 2 companions. "We are patient. And there is a significant difference. The shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home to Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Federation was about to receive an education they would never forget. The Reckoning. 18 hours had passed since humanity's fleet vanished from galactic sensors. In that time, the Kryn invasion force had traveled through 3 jump points, crossed 200 light-years, and arrived at the edge of the new Terra system. Warlord Thrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Vengeance, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main view screen. New Terra was humanity's second-largest colony, home to 2.8 million people. The world had been terraformed over 60 years, transformed from a barren rock into something that could support Earth-descended life. Cities dotted 3 continents, their lights visible from orbit like scattered jewels. Agricultural zones spread across fertile valleys, and small oceans reflected the light of the system's yellow sun. It was beautiful, and it was about to become Kryn property. "Sensor report," Thrak commanded, his voice filling the bridge. His tactical officer, a younger Kryn named Vesh, consulted her displays. "The system is completely undefended, Warlord. No military vessels detected. No defense platforms. No weapon satellites. Long-range scans show civilian traffic only, cargo ships and passenger transports. Most are fleeing toward the outer planets." Thrak's chest rumbled with satisfaction. As expected. The humans have abandoned their people. He turned to address his command staff, 40 officers who represented the finest military minds of the Kryn Empire. "We will demonstrate mercy today. Broadcast on all frequencies. Tell the colonists they have 12 hours to surrender and prepare for evacuation. Any resistance will be met with immediate orbital bombardment." The communication officer sent the message. It reached New Terra in seconds, spreading across every channel, interrupting every broadcast, appearing on every screen. Down on the planet's surface, millions of humans received the ultimatum. Some panicked. Some wept. Some gathered their families and headed to the evacuation centers that had been established weeks ago. But some simply looked up at the sky and waited. Thrak allowed himself to relax slightly in his command chair. The hard part was over. The humans had fled, just as he predicted. The Council would complain about the aggressive tactics, but no one would actually intervene. This was how the galaxy worked. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak accepted their fate. "Warlord," Vesh said suddenly, her voice sharp with confusion. "I'm detecting spatial anomalies." Thrak's attention snapped back to the tactical display. "Specify." "Multiple points throughout the system. Reading as dimensional instabilities, similar to jump point signatures, but different. The pattern is wrong." Her claws danced across her console, pulling up more data. "Warlord, there are hundreds of them. All appearing simultaneously." The main view screen flickered and changed, showing the tactical overview of the entire system. Across the display, small red markers appeared like drops of blood against the black of space. They surrounded the Kryn fleet completely, above and below, on all sides. Thrak counted them quickly and felt something cold settle in his stomach. 847 markers. "What am I looking at?" he demanded. Vesh's voice was uncertain. "I don't know, Warlord. The signatures are unlike anything in our database." "Wait, they're changing. The dimensional instabilities are stabilizing. Something is emerging." Space itself seemed to tear open. That was the only way Thrak's mind could process what he was seeing. Across the system, reality split along invisible seams, and through those splits came ships. Human ships. Vessels that should not exist, built with technology that should not be possible. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. Each hull was composed of a dark metallic alloy that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them appear as cutouts in space itself. Their designs were sleek and angular, with flowing lines that suggested both speed and power. No external weapons were visible, but Thrak's tactical instincts screamed that these ships were far more dangerous than anything he had encountered before. The largest vessel appeared directly ahead of the Crimson Vengeance, less than 10 kilometers away. It was easily twice the size of Thrak's flagship, a massive dreadnought that dominated the viewscreen. Along its hull, in letters that glowed with soft white light, was written, UCDF Unconquerable Spirit. All ships, battle formations, Thrak roared, his shock giving way to fury and fear. Raise shields, charge weapons. Prepare for immediate combat. The Kryn fleet scrambled to respond. 47 warships that had been in relaxed cruising formation suddenly broke apart, each one moving to its assigned position. Energy shields flickered to life around each hull. Plasma cannons began charging, their distinctive whine audible even through the vacuum of space via the ship's internal sensors. But the human fleet did not move. They simply floated in space, surrounding the Kryn completely, their dark hulls motionless and silent. Then every screen on every Kryn ship changed. The tactical displays vanished, replaced by a single image. A human face appeared, male, older, with silver hair and eyes that held the weight of difficult decisions. He wore a dark uniform with insignia that meant nothing to Thrak but suggested high rank. "I am Fleet Admiral James Chin of the United Colonies Defense Network," the human said, his voice calm and measured. "Warlord Thrak, you have entered human territory without authorization and threatened our citizens. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender your vessels." Thrak's roar of rage echoed through the bridge. "You dare threaten me? You dare threaten the Kryn Empire?" He pointed at the main screen. "I have 47 warships, each one crewed by warriors who have conquered a dozen worlds. What do you have? Shadows? Illusions? Tricks meant to scare us?" Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "I have no desire for conflict, Warlord. But I will not allow you to harm our people. Stand down." "Never," Thrak snarled. He looked at his weapons officer. "Target the largest human vessel. Full spread, plasma torpedoes and particle beams. Show these mammals what real power looks like." The Crimson Vengeance unleashed everything in its arsenal. 12 plasma torpedoes streaked through space, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city. 6 particle beam cannons fired simultaneously, their concentrated streams of accelerated matter capable of punching through any known shielding. Around the flagship, the other Kryn vessels opened fire as well, creating a storm of destructive energy that lit up the darkness like a miniature sun. The humans did not dodge. They did not even move. A shimmering barrier appeared around each human ship, a field of energy that looked like rippling water made of light. The plasma torpedoes struck these barriers and simply vanished, their energy absorbed and dissipated harmlessly. The particle beams hit the shields and bent away, redirected into empty space where they could harm nothing. Not a single human vessel took damage. Thrak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "That's impossible. No shielding can absorb that much energy without overloading." "Warlord," Vesh said, her voice small and frightened, "their shields didn't even fluctuate. The energy readings are stable. It was like we were firing at nothing." Admiral Chen's face reappeared on the screen. "Your 60 seconds have expired, Warlord. I regret that you chose this path." He paused, and something like sadness crossed his features. "All units, execute Mercy Protocol. Disable only. No lethal force." The human fleet moved for the first time. They did not fire weapons that Thrak could recognize. Instead, focused beams of electromagnetic energy lanced out from each ship, invisible to the naked eye but devastating in effect. When these beams struck the Kryn vessels, entire systems shut down instantly. Power cores went offline. Life support switched to emergency backup. Weapons became inert metal. Engines went cold and dark. Squadron Commander Lyra Chen led the first wave of smaller human craft. Her vessel, a sleek frigate called the Dancing Blade, moved with impossible agility. She targeted the Kryn destroyer positioned at the fleet's edge, a ship called the Iron Fawn. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez, locked onto specific systems with precision that would have been impossible with conventional targeting. Gravity pulse, Mark 1, Rodriguez called out. The dancing blade fired. A sphere of warped spacetime expanded from the iron fong, and suddenly the Kryn destroyer was held motionless, caught in an artificial gravity well that prevented any movement. Its crew were unharmed, their ship intact, but they could do nothing except float helplessly in space. Across the system, similar scenarios played out. Human vessels used weapons that the Kryn had never imagined. Quantum disruptors that phased matter between dimensional states, making it impossible for Kryn weapons to achieve target lock. Neural suppression fields that rendered targeting computers useless without harming the organic crew members. Precision electromagnetic pulses that surgically disabled specific systems while leaving life support and crew quarters untouched. In 11 minutes and 37 seconds, the entire Kryn invasion fleet was disabled. 47 warships, the pride of an empire that had conquered 23 worlds, floated dead in space. Not a single shot had destroyed a vessel. Not a single Kryn warrior had died. On the bridge of the Crimson Vengeance, Thrak sat in his command chair in stunned silence. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across his face. His tactical display was dark. His weapons were offline. Even his communication systems were disabled except for a single channel that the humans had graciously left operational. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the emergency screen one final time. Behind him, Thrak could see the bridge of the unconquerable spirit, filled with human officers working at stations that displayed technology he could not begin to understand. Warlord Thrak, your fleet will be towed to a holding position at the edge of the system. Your crews will not be harmed. They will receive food, water, and medical attention as needed. In 72 hours, diplomatic representatives from the Kryn Empire will arrive to negotiate your release. Thrak found his voice, though it came out as a hoarse whisper. How? How did you do this? Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. We had 40 years, Warlord. 40 years of being dismissed, mocked, and ignored. 40 years of being told we did not matter. We could have spent that time complaining, or we could spend it preparing. He leaned forward slightly. We chose to prepare. You could have destroyed us, Thrak said, the realization hitting him fully. You could have killed us all. Yes, Chen acknowledged. But that is not who we are. You threatened our colonies, Warlord. You came here planning to take our homes by force. We stopped you. But we did not kill you, because we are not conquerors. We are defenders. The Admiral stood, preparing to end the communication. When you return to your empire, tell them what happened here today. Tell them that humanity is not prey. Tell them that we do not seek war, but we will not accept subjugation. Tell them that we would prefer to be allies rather than enemies, but the choice is theirs. The screen went dark, leaving Thrak alone with his thoughts and the ruins of his pride. The news of what happened at New Terra spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Monitoring stations detected the engagement. Trade ships witnessed the aftermath. Within hours, every civilization knew that humanity had revealed weapons that made their own arsenals obsolete. On Zenith Prime, the Grand Assembly Hall was filled to capacity for an emergency session. Director Kesh presented his findings to the stunned delegates. Based on our analysis, the human fleet emerged from what they call dimensional fold space. This is a parallel dimension that exists alongside our own reality but remains undetectable to conventional sensors. He displayed technical data that made little sense to most observers. They can observe us while remaining invisible. They can travel instantaneously across any distance. They can strike without warning and retreat without being followed. High Chancellor Vorin of the Talvek Confederation spoke, his crystal body pulsing with colors that indicated deep concern. How long have they possessed this technology? At minimum, 40 years, Kesh replied. Based on the complexity of their ships and the training evident in their crews, possibly longer. The chamber erupted in noise. 40 years. For decades during which humanity had sat in the upper tiers of this very hall, listening to insults and mockery, all while building a fleet that could challenge the entire galaxy. The Arbiter raised a hand, bringing silence. The Council recognizes Dr. Sarah Kim of Earth, who has requested to address this assembly. A holographic image appeared above the central platform. Dr. Kim was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes that were now hardened with determination. She had spent 35 years working on the Fold Space Project, enduring ridicule from alien scientists who dismissed her theories as fantasy. Members of the Council, she began, I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a teacher. For decades, I presented my research on dimensional physics to your universities and scientific forums. I was laughed out of conferences. My papers were rejected without review. I was told that humans were too primitive to understand real science. She displayed equations and diagrams that slowly revealed the mathematical foundation of fold space theory. I was not too primitive. I was correct. And because you refused to listen, because you assumed that nothing important could come from a species you considered inferior, you allowed us to develop technology that has fundamentally altered the balance of galactic power. Ambassador Sereth of the Fenari rose from her seat. She was one of the few who had consistently shown humans respect, and her voice now carried the weight of someone who had tried to warn others. Dr. Kim, what does Earth intend to do with this advantage? Sarah Kim's expression softened slightly. What we have always intended, Ambassador. We want to trade fairly. We want to explore peacefully. We want to contribute to galactic civilization as equals, not as subjects or servants. She paused, letting her words settle. We built these weapons hoping we would never need them. We revealed them only because we were given no choice. Commander Elena Vasquez appeared beside Dr. Kim's hologram. She had returned to Zenith Prime, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood a delegation of 50 human officers, scientists, and diplomats. And behind them, visible through the station's viewports, hung 7 human dreadnoughts, their dark hulls a silent reminder of humanity's capabilities. The United Colonies of Earth offer the following terms for renewed diplomatic relations, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. First, immediate cessation of all hostile actions against human territories. Second, recognition of Earth's sovereignty over all currently held colonies. Third, equal voting rights in this council. Fourth, fair access to trade routes and resources. Fifth, mutual defense agreements with any species who wish to be our allies rather than our adversaries. She looked directly at where Warlord Thrax's empty seat sat, the Kryn delegation having withdrawn in shame. These terms are not negotiable. They are not requests. They are the foundation of how Earth will interact with the galaxy from this day forward. High Chancellor Vorin spoke first. And if we refuse? Elena's expression remained neutral, but her eyes were hard. Then we will continue to defend ourselves as necessary. We will protect our citizens. We will maintain our sovereignty. And we will do so alone if we must. She softened slightly. But we hope it will not come to that. We did not build this fleet to conquer. We built it to ensure that no one could force us to our knees. The Arbiter stood, his ancient form moving slowly but with dignity. The Council will deliberate. Earth's delegation will be notified of our decision within 48 hours. But everyone in the chamber already knew what that decision would be. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, had dismissed them as insignificant, had mocked them as primitives playing at civilization. That mistake had cost them dearly, not in lives but in something more valuable, their certainty, their arrogance, their comfortable assumption that they understood the universe and their place in it. 48 hours later, the Council voted. This time, the results were unanimous. Earth's terms were accepted in full. Ambassador Sereth stood to deliver a formal statement on behalf of the Fenari and 12 other species who immediately requested alliance treaties with humanity. Let this day mark a new era, Sereth said, her voice carrying both hope and humility. An era in which we judge others not by their appearance, their age, or their origin, but by their actions and their character. 1 month after the incident at New Terra, the formal treaty signing took place on Zenith Prime. The ceremony was attended by representatives from every major civilization. This time, the human delegation sat in the lowest tier, in seats reserved for the most powerful species. Commander Elena Vasquez signed the document alongside the Arbiter and the leaders of 63 civilizations. As she placed her signature on the final page, she looked up at the gallery where she had once sat in the upper tiers, looking down at this very platform. The irony was not lost on her. After the ceremony, Elena found herself approached by several delegates who had once mocked Earth's petition. They came offering apologies, requesting meetings, suggesting trade agreements. She received them all with professional courtesy, but she did not forget. She would never forget. That evening, Elena stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Fleet Admiral Chen joined her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered her one, and they stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Do you think they learned?" Elena asked quietly. Chen considered the question. "Some did. Some never will. But enough of them understand now that we can build something better. Something based on mutual respect rather than fear. And if they forget? If they decide in 10 years or 50 years that humanity has grown weak again?" Chen smiled grimly. "Then they will discover that we have not been idle. The fold space technology is just the beginning, Elena. Our scientists have already developed 3 new systems that make our current fleet look primitive." He sipped his coffee. "We learned our lesson 40 years ago. We will never be helpless again." Elena nodded slowly. "Good." They stood together, 2 humans who had helped change the course of galactic history, watching the stars and thinking about the future. It would not be an easy future. There would be challenges, conflicts, misunderstandings. But it would be a future where humanity faced those challenges as equals, not as victims. Down on Earth, in cities across 7 colony worlds, humans looked up at the night sky with new confidence. The galaxy had tried to break them, to diminish them, to make them insignificant. Instead, humanity had proven something that the ancient species had forgotten over their millennia of dominance: underestimating others was not just rude. It was the most dangerous mistake any civilization could make. And the galaxy would not make that mistake about humanity again.